Hello again, all you faithful listeners out there. Thanks for listening again to one of my podcasts. Boy, these 2 weeks have shot by so fast. I don't know about you listening out there, but before you know it, I'm actually rebroadcasting again as I'm doing right now. And it's just time has just flown. Had a great long weekend, and I hope everyone else enjoyed their long weekend. But um, but a bit of news. I know that I think it was around about one of my episodes 7 or something like that. I was talking about the swifts and swallows, and I mentioned the fact that the barn swallows were leaving and going back overseas, and they left a couple of weeks ago. And funny enough, my son sent me a little message a couple of days ago. He says, "Hey, Dad, guess what? He's seen his first barn swallow there. Isn't that absolutely amazing? It's just incredible. And to think that it's not just the swallows. There's so many other birds also just migrating, just moving around the planet at all times. It's just fantastic that they can fly so far. And yeah, so that's a little bit of news. Um, but I know I've been talking a lot about endemic birds in the last two podcasts, but I'm going to just swing it around a bit to change it slightly this week. I definitely will come back to them. I can promise you that, especially if those of you out there are looking forward to hearing more about the endemic birds. But I want to change it a bit. I want to actually start talking about things that I've seen quite a lot recently around my garden and in the bush around where I stay. I stay near the Amdoni forests, which are basically right there by the Amdoni golf course. Really like a place to stay and go birding. But they're extremely beautiful birds. There's 21 different species of sunbirds here in South Africa. I tell you what, I won't be able to fit them all at the moment, but I'm going to start with a few of the most commonest, that's a strange word, eh? Communist, the most common of these birds, the sunbirds. So I'll have a little chat about them. These sunbirds have a preference for feeding on nectar. The wonderful thing about these birds feeding on nectar is that they have this reciprocal type of relationship whereby the birds are feeding on the flowers through the nectar, with all that beautiful, wonderful nectar that they're sucking up, and then their bodies, like their chest, their head, their throats, they're busy collecting pollen, which generally sticks to them, and of course, um, that great function is definitely required by all the flowers. Pollination is being fulfilled. So this life is actually amazing. This that these things can carry on all the time. You have the bees and the birds and the bees. We're back to that again. But anyway, these birds um, were sort of carrying them through from plant to plant. It's incredible, man. Um, the sugar birds, which are very similar, they also do the same. They also feed mainly on nectar, but I'll cover the sugar birds a little bit later. But they are truly adapted for this because the sunbirds, as well as the sugar birds, have long, curved, very fairly thinnish bills, which probe deep into the flowers for the nectar. And they have very long tongues. They've got little grooves in them or little hollows, and these long tongues allows them to reach actually far beyond the end of the edge of their bill tips. So then they can gather their nectar, especially from these very long curved flowers. As I said before, they've got really deeply grooved or maybe tubular sometimes, grooved little spots and rows in their tongue, which allows them to draw up this nectar. And at the end of their tongue, they have a special little brush-like tip on the end of their tongues, very unique. Some of the birds, in fact, some of the sunbirds, which is quite fascinating, have a little flap that sort of covers their nostril, which actually stops the pollen from being breathed in. How about that? Some of the sunbirds aren't big as the others, and the bills are not as long. They can still hit the smaller flowers, but um, some of them that can't reach sort of a nectar, if the nectar is really strong in a certain plant, they can't actually reach it. They actually puncture the base of the flower with their bills so they can reach this wonderful food. Um, but the name that a lot of the birders use is, for this particular behavior is nectar robbing. As you can imagine, the poor plants gain nothing from this at all. But luckily, it's not a norm. It doesn't happen most of the time, as they would sort of normally suck their lovely, lovely, gorgeous nectar up through their bills. The nectar is actually their staple diet, but it's very low in protein, so these birds will actually supplement with a few little insects now and again, a little side dish, dish on the side. They've also got ability, all sunbirds, to actually hover. Not for very long, but they can hover. So some of the plants that are hard to stand on or reach, you'll see them every now and again hovering at certain flowers while they are getting their nectar. Well, that's all very interesting. And the thing that you'll notice when I talk about the next few birds, that everyone's female that actually make the nest. So I'm going to talk about a few of these sunbirds now. And the first one is the amethyst sunbird. This amethyst sunbird, the old name was a black sunbird. What I haven't said that most of the sunbirds, for that matter, most birds really, the coloring of the males are so different to the females, where the males have these most beautiful colors, and a lot of the females have this drab gray or brownish colors with a couple of stripes, etc., except a couple of the smaller ones. But in most of the species, you'll find the males are really gorgeous, and the females are just basically there. But they do a lot of hard work, as we'll discuss just now. The male of this amethyst sunbird is quite black. He's black all over, and he's got this lovely metallic green forecrown. You'll see it as he moves around. Sometimes you don't see it from a distance, but when he moves, the sun catches that, and he's got a little reddish purple under its throat, but only on its throat, not on its chest, so people don't get confused between that and the next one that I'm going to talk about, which is the scarlet sunbird, scarlet-breasted sunbird. But you need to check up on these birds yourselves, because to actually see them in pictures, so go to one of the many bird guides that I actually chat about and see how beautiful these birds really are. You'll find these amethyst sunbirds in most garlands, woodland areas, but only from Cape Town, on the sort of eastern coast of South Africa, from about Cape Town right through the Natal coast, through Swaziland, and up through Limpopo. And as I've said, the ladies build a nest every time. It's almost an oval-shaped nest, this one, and often made with grass and leaves. But normally when the male shows off with the missus, he actually, this particular bird, he flutters from branch to branch, and he drops one of his wings, and he drops another wing, and then he actually drops both of his wings. And it's quite fun to watch them when they're actually doing their little courtship move around the ladies. But I think it was just the last time I spoke, or the week before, or the time before, I spoke about parrotized birds. And quite a few of these are parrotized. This specific one is parrotized by the class's cuckoo, and also the green-backed honeybird occasionally. Yeah, my next sunbird I'm going to talk about is the scarlet-chested. I just mentioned it just now. So that's going to be my next choice, mainly because they actually look alike, and I just wanted to make sure that you don't get mixed up between that and the one I've just spoken about, the amethyst sunbird. They're about the same size. They're about 14 centimeters in length, and the scarlet-chested, as the name implies, has this beautiful scarlet chest, and you can't miss it really. And in the upper throat area, there's this iridescent green on its crown and chin. The male is actually larger than the female, who's like a drab grey appearance, but she has a very mottled, like marks or stripes down her chest, which sets her aside from the female of the amethyst sunbird. So if you do see the two together, and then you'll know that that is in fact the female scarlet-chested sunbird. They have quite a nice type of whistle. I think I'm going to give it a try. Right, it goes something like this. Sometimes with a little at the end there, and they sort of call around and you actually hear them. But it'll be much better, I think, if you go and listen to yourself. But that's exactly what they they sound, but they're not really in the same area. In some cases they overlap, but they'll only be found along the north coast of KwaZulu, Natal, that's from Durban, through Swaziland and up through the Kruger. And of course their nests are also built by the females. They're almost like a pear-shaped oval nest, which is normally firmly attached to a branch near the top of most trees. But there you go, that's the scarlet-chested sunbird and the amethyst that I've actually just spoken about. But they're both really, really beautiful birds to see. As I said, from a distance they do look the same, but when you get closer you'll see there definitely is a big difference between the two. Well, the other one I'm going to change a bit is a smaller one. It's called the collared sunbird, which is a lot smaller than the other two that I've just spoken about, where the amethyst is about 14 centimeters. This little collared is only about 10 centimeters in length. They're very easy to identify because they're the only sunbirds in South Africa. I'm talking about South Africa, not like northern up, like the Sahara type area, along that Mozambique area, where they have one that's fairly similar. But it's all yellow underneath. And you'll see it's all yellow underneath, bit of green under the chin, and over the back it's also got a beautiful green head and back, and has a very thin purplish bluish type of band around its neck. And the female is very similar. It's not so drab. It's also got this lovely yellow and with green coming from the top of her head right through to the back. But it too has a yellow belly, but it lacks that bluish purple neck band that I spoke about. And they normally hang around in pairs. You'll see them flitting around from tree to tree looking for the nectar. It can also be found from the east coast of South Africa, but from about Knysna, going up all the way through to Mozambique, up through Swaziland and through the Kruger. And that's basically where you'll find them. But as I said, just go to one of the bird books that I mentioned and have a look for yourself. The nests are also boring, built by the female. And watch the female. When the female tries to build this nest, the male follows her and harasses her all around. She builds this beautiful, like oval-shaped nest as well. They've got a very easy call to identify, but I'm not going to try and do that one. Go in there and just listen to it, as I've said before. But the one thing that I do like about these, collared sunbirds is when the female builds its nest, it normally does it near a wasp's nest, so to gain a bit of protection from the monkeys. So these ladies are not too stupid, eh? That's for sure. Right, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is a lot more south and in the Free State. It's the Malachite sunbird. It's the only sunbird in South Africa that has a long thin tail. There's one further north. It's called the bronzy sunbird, but it's in a very small little area. It's up out of South Africa, but it won't be found here in South Africa. These things are about 25 centimeters long. They have this beautiful long thin tail. Can't miss them when they're flying around, flying around from tree to tree. So as I said, with the length of the whole bird, including a thin tail, is 25 centimeters long. And it actually changes colors. During mating season, it gets this beautiful metallic green color all over. But non-breeding, when it stops breeding, it starts changing a bit back to like a brownish back with like a whitish chest and belly. And when the male and female get together, they only kind of like get together and stay together through the whole breeding cycle. And yes, built by the female only, which is also an oval type nest with a bit of a side entrance, and it's also firmly attached to the branch, but it doesn't hang. They're also parrotised, but by three of the birds, mostly the classes Diedrich and the red-chested cuckoo. Right, these malachite birds, these beautiful green birds, when they can be found around most of the coastal areas in South Africa, up the west coast of the Cape, right around up towards the Natal coast, moving up through the Free State towards the Limpopo area. And I think I've said this before. The other thing you can do is you can get a lot of these bird guides The field bird guides come in form on an app on your phone, and it's great because you can actually get it to at any time. You don't have to go and find a book, and of course it'll have the bird sounds with it, so it makes it a lot easier for you when you go birding to listen to the sounds prior to you going. Like I said, you look in the book, find out what's in the area, listen to the sounds of the bird, and get yourself tuned into those sounds. So when you walk into the forest or you walk somewhere, you kind of got those sounds already in the back of your head, especially when we start talking about some of the cisticulars, which are beautiful sounding birds, but they all look very much the same. But you can tell them from, when they're flitting around and they're doing their little acts, but their singing is just tremendous. And every single one is different, so it's quite easy. But next time I will talk about a few more of the sunbirds. But please, 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 get a hold of me on Facebook or Instagram, um, even on Chat Sapphire, I think, but mostly on Facebook or Instagram. Get a hold of me and ask any questions. I'll read it up there. I'll gladly try and help and even talk about some of the subjects that you might want to hear as far as the birding goes. But thanks for your time, and hopefully you haven't switched off yet. But but until next time, from Big Al, cheers.